Hi everyone, welcome back to Matt Talks and Matt Talks to Pepa this time, or Josef Starýchfojtů. I don't know what you prefer.
External, it's usually Joseph, but internal, it's always Pepa.
What do
You
your
know,
friends call you? Pepa.
Pepa, yeah.
And Pepa will be for today. What do you do at Mews?
I'm the Chief Product and Technology Officer. That means that I lead all the teams that make our products better every day.
Nice. And how big is the team that you lead?
That is close to 500 people today, composed of product managers, designers, a lot of engineers, but also security, data, etc.
That is crazy. Like we really deeply think about how much money do we invest in R&D because ultimately we want to change an industry. And we try and tie the growth of your teams to our revenue. So as we gain more customers, we always might want to make sure that we also grow the R&D teams so that we can keep up. And today's conversation is around the Mews roadmap. And we're probably one of the most open companies in talking about what we're planning to do. Do you ever worry about that we're releasing all these secrets to the world and everyone else is listening and copying what we're doing? Do you worry about this, or you actually think this is the right way to do it?
I'm definitely not worried about sharing things like competitors, etc. I think the history has proven that it's not about idea, it's about execution. It's always like about execution. Very little companies who are sort of the dominant players in their industries today were the first ones to introduce that product to the market. So usually it's much more about execution. So I'm not worried about ideas. What I'm sometimes worried is that we do sometimes change the roadmap, and so talking about things out loud and then changing that can be difficult to navigate for our customers sometimes. But that is when we change, we always change for our customers as well. So it's like it's a two-way door.
Yeah. Like we try not to reveal too much so that we still keep the flexibility to be able to change things. But it is really hard to come up with a roadmap that satisfies everyone, especially when you've got a broad spectrum of products, right?
Yeah, there is I think Mews is at now 60 countries, 70 countries, 80 countries globally, multiple segments, everything from hostels to long stays, to traditional hotels, boutiques, like kind of everything, groups of hotels, small groups, bigger groups, different ownership structures, brands, etc. And obviously, everyone, has sort of different challenges, unique challenges that they are facing, and every hotel is indeed unique. So satisfying everyone is a hard challenge, but that is why we are so excited to be on that journey as well.
So I grew up knowing I was going to be a hotelier. That was always my dream. Did you always grow up knowing you wanted to be a CPTO? Was that your dream?
Definitely not. I have a saying that people always feel like they have a dream job or there is something they really want to do, and that is kind of like the find your passion. And I always say like that's bullshit. I never believed that. I always think like you're passionate, like that's a trait of a person, and it doesn't really matter what you do. And I found myself being passionate almost about everything. And so I always do things that excite me and expand my impact, and that's how I guess ended up being a CPTO as well, even though I originally did not plan for that. I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to do like architect. My family is like civil engineers, and so I wanted to design buildings and stuff. So yeah.
Where did that change? At which point of your life did you think, no, actually, that's not what I want to do?
When I was my chess, I played chess when I was young, and my chess teacher, he was a software engineer, and it sounded interesting. So when I was 12, I bought a book, Intro, like 101 Software Engineering, and I just fell in love with it, and got my first gig when I was 13, like doing programming, and really kind of got stuck in it, crafting software and building things for customers, etc. So really got stuck with me and last until now, even though I'm not hands-on obviously anymore, not coding.
And you are like, I hate that I say this, but you're one of the most powerful people in our industry that could make a change to the way that people travel in hospitality, right? Because if you're running one of the fastest moving tech companies and you're at the lead of making a lot of the decisions, but what's one of the things that you notice in hotels that you wish you could fix or that you might fix down the line that are really like a pet peeve that you have?
This is also a dangerous question, right? Because
yes, now you're gonna
building for such a diverse audience, I can't over-index on my experiences. So while I do have like some personal wish, I always have to be aware that I can't actually put them into our roadmap in any way. But what really I always hate when there is like inconsistency at the level of service. There is, you go into a hotel, and not just hotels, a lot of businesses, small businesses, big businesses out there, but you go into and you immediately after your check-in experience, you like have 5 things in your head that could be better. And they are not hard things. Those are things that, could be easily put in place to just make the experience better. And that is, that consistency is something that I'm like really wishing for, that we can help achieve, within our industry, so that we can rely on exceptional service. If you think about the best memory you have in hospitality, what makes that memory special is that you were probably the only one who experienced that on that day. And that's a pity, so I'm all about how can we make it so that, we can scale great guest experiences by being intentional about them.
Because what was a great hospitality experience that was given to you, that was unique to you?
There is a couple of options, but the one that I always go to is when we were on Mallorca. There was this like very small family hotels that they wouldn't even use Mews. It was like, I don't know, 7 rooms. But I was super exhausted after a day of walking through the mountains in like 40 degrees. I was super hungry. And, the lady, she showed us the rooms and, let us basically drive a tent in another room that was free. And then she would basically cook us dinner herself. And that was, I really needed it after the day. So it was a really personal, like authentic experience as such that I keep referring to.
I love that.
But I'm a foodie. So any hotel that has good food, that is actually...
No bread. No bread.
Exactly. So any hotel that has a great restaurant or great food options will always be my favorite hotel. So that is maybe my other, like, really personal thing I would love to improve, to make sure that hotel restaurants are not like, they don't have this label, it's a hotel restaurant. Yeah, like, but they are actually great restaurants and gyms, also like you go to a hotel gym, it's a hotel gym. Like, why is that? Like, why is it not a proper gym? Like, and there is no good reason for it. It's just that like they didn't care usually.
Yeah. It's an afterthought. They wanted to tick the box on Booking.com that they have a gym, and then hopefully they get more guests, but actually the experience is just inferior. But I love the example of Mallorca, because I think if you think about what Airbnb tried to do originally, they wanted to get these really personal experiences in people's homes. And actually what it's become is this industry of just soulless apartments that are being rented. And it isn't what you experienced is what you're getting with Airbnb. And one of my favorite hotels is this hotel in Stockholm called At Hem, which is at home. And I had the same experience. I arrived, and this was a luxury hotel, so it was probably a very different experience. But as I arrived, I was hungry from my trip. And I said, "Do you still serve lunch?" And she just walked into the kitchen, and then she said, "Any allergies?" "No." And then they served me whatever they had in the moment. And it was just such a nice, warm experience. And it just made me feel at home, which I guess is their brand. And that, I think, is the ultimate hospitality experience.
Yeah, I really enjoyed. We were talking to someone who did a talk at one of our conferences, internal conferences, and they worked with the BMW, and they said that the kind of main metric BMW was optimizing for is obviously the amount of times you buy a second BMW, and the most kind of correlated metric they found is when you had an issue with the first BMW and they fixed the issue, you would always buy a second one. That was the biggest indicator for that. And I think that just speaks to both of our experiences you just mentioned. When you go into a hotel and you have a struggle, it's not just a delight, but you actually have a real struggle that they managed to solve and actually turn into a delightment. That is truly when you like kind of get even emotionally attached to the brand and to the business.
But some of I think there is data in hospitality as well that some of the most loyal customers you have may at some point have complained, but because of the recovery experience that they've had, they've become incredibly loyal, versus someone who's just, it was good enough. Like, I'll come back next time. But that loyalty, those people that had these extreme emotional experiences and then turn something negative into something extremely positive, will be loyal for life.
Definitely. And also when we talk about, like, when people talk about, hospitality, we tend to over-index on like kind of luxury, personalized experiences. We also have to I always try to think about all the possible varieties. Like some guests just care about the cost, right? And therefore, like, they need a different experience, basically, than like this luxury one. But what we believe is that technology can actually commoditize what luxury is today, tomorrow, right? So like if you think 200 years ago, kind of only like the highest in the society could travel. Nowadays, everyone travels, right? Because of technological advancement, and that is indeed our mission at Mews, as I view it, is to also make sure that technology can enable these great today luxury, but tomorrow absolutely ordinary experiences for everyone.
Nice. Let's talk about the roadmap. So there's one thing that is looking forward, but one thing is also looking backwards, whether we actually delivered on something that excites you in the last year. What's the most exciting thing we released in the last 12 months?
It's like picking a favorite children, and it's super hard. But there is one that I think really fits the context. Everyone talks about AI. Everyone talks about it, but very few actually know what to do with it. And I'm so glad that we have managed to figure out a real use case that actually makes our customers better, which are the smart tips that actually try to get all the data across all these systems into a single, tweet sized or X sized,
I think
sort of
still
summary.
on tweets, even
Yeah,
though
okay.
it was X. Yeah,
that's good to know. I'll take a note on that. So that I think is really powerful, because it actually is a real thing that shows this is the free. I'm super bullish on it. Yes, there are still things that are, make it like it's maybe in the future, but I don't believe it's a maybe. It's only a matter of when. So I'm glad we sort of helped on that progression, and we continue to explore avenues to make it not just tick a box, Mews is an AI solution, but actually things that our customers will testimonial that they are, making their jobs better, easier, more successful.
So looking forward to 2025, we obviously have a large team of people that have to deliver quite a broad spectrum of features out there. One of the biggest kind of categories that we're talking about internally is revenue. We want to help hotels drive more revenue. And when you think in hotels, when you think about revenue, you generally think RevPAR, revenue per available room, which is room revenue divided by the number of rooms that the hotel has. And then that's the metric that our whole industry is built on. We're thinking we can go much further than just that one metric. That's the only metric that is measured across our industry. But ultimately, that's the only thing we can measure today in our industry, because that's what our systems are built for. So if you can't measure something, you can't fix it. So we've been working hard on fixing the underlying data layers in our system. But do you want to maybe talk about what the future of AI was? Because I think we've obviously had a product in this category before, which was an analytics product that I genuinely wasn't proud of. We pushed it out a few years ago, and it was decent, but it wasn't world class, and it didn't change the narrative. And when we went back to the drawing board, we really said we need to get this right. If we want to do this right, then we have to own this product from the beginning. But maybe if you want to talk us through what work has, like, we've been working on this for quite a long time, and what are you hoping to release this year?
Yeah, I think first of all, we always, when we talk about any sort of report or data, we always say, best report is no report. The same as best job is no job. And the best kind of process is no process. So we always
Can you explain that? Because I don't think everyone understands what you mean with it, but I think it's a really valid point.
So I think we have this famous example that we keep overusing, but there is like thousands more of night audit, right? Like when you're optimizing for a job to be done at a hotel, you can either think, how do I reduce the time it takes to accomplish the task? Or you actually think from a different perspective, like, why do I even do that? And can I reduce it completely and just kind of get it to zero? So instead of making night audit more efficient, we completely automated the task from hotels, and that is sort of a mantra that we continue to live by and think about. Obviously, it doesn't. It's not something that happens overnight. Sometimes, but the same way we should be thinking about not just how we make check-in more efficient, but why do you need check-in, and how can we completely remove that and make it more like a welcome ceremony instead. And when it comes to revenue, right? Like it's I think one of the things that the industry is talking about quite a lot. It's also not just, first of all, it's not just about the rooms. I proudly always say that Mews is the only property management system in the world. Everything else is like a room management system. So we are the first ones and the only ones I think who truly deserve the label of a PMS. And it really we encourage you to think outside just those rooms, because of revenue per allowed room. Thinking about rooms as the only vertical to grow your revenue is limiting to your business. You should be thinking about your guests and other spaces, your overall real estate, but also revenue is not the only thing in the business, right? It's also the total profit of your business that you should be optimizing for. And I think what we'll see more and more with technology, and what great solutions like Atomize have been preaching for a while now, that we are now super proud to kind of partner so well and manage with, is really that whole picture of how can the technology enable all of the P&L, not just parts or small pockets of it, but really kind of think about the business much more holistically. And that is, I think, like a big brand promise of Mews, is that we think for you and with you holistically, not just limiting, oh no, we just do this part. If you think about a lot of softwares that you do on that you use on daily basis, and think about what they know about you. Think of your to-do list. To-do list only knows what your to-dos are. That's not important. We have the privilege to have access to all the information that hotel processes, and also be part of majority of their workflows. And we take that responsibility seriously, as that we are also responsible for holistically actually improving this business. There are 5 metrics that I'm kind of very excited about, that I've talked about on Unfold.
I even printed them today.
You even printed them today. They are now famously known as Pepa pillars internally, but those are 5 metrics that I talked about on Unfold that I do think show if technology is making your business more successful. And they also try to actually, it's not just a metric, it's more like a directionally shows, how we think about technology and what do we want to how do we want to improve you on that front. And there is you've touched on the topic of revenue. There is just so much, in that bucket. Where do you think we should start?
So I'd love to maybe just dig into the pillars a little bit, so that people understand what are some of these metrics specifically that we're talking about that are different from RevPAR.
So the first pillar is guest experience. Everyone has a different way to measure that, be it reviews or some surveys that you do, complaints, number of complaints, the amount of times people return back. There is a lot of indicators you can use to measure that guest experience, but ultimately hospitality is about guest experience. And if your guest experience is not good, your business will never be sustainable. People won't return back. You'll get bad reviews. No one will actually book the hotel. I think there was also a study done that actually the founder of Atomize shared with me, is that every half of a star on Google's rating is equal to additional 10 to 20% revenue. That there is like a huge correlation in there. So that is obviously front of mind for everyone. The other side of the coin of guest, experience is also guest lifetime value. If I say I like something, it might be good, but you don't know whether I truly like it before I actually pay for it, right? So one thing is what people say, but the other thing is how people behave. So is your guest experience actually so good that people not only like it, but are willing to pay more for it and return back to actually relive it? So that kind of talks about that guest as an avenue for growth. The second,
the guest lifetime value is one of those metrics that we've all aspired to measure in some way, but because it's so hard to figure out whether customer is returning, and that's why every hotel is like, "Oh, have you been here before?" And you're like, "Yeah, many times." And it's because, one, the hotel chains, they don't consolidate the data in the right way. Two, also, we don't always know, because if you book through Booking.com or Expedia, then they anonymize your profile. And that hotel doesn't know that John Smith is the same John Smith that stayed with an anonymous email address. So we're making it really easy now to merge profiles. And that's something we released at the end of last year, but also to then merge profiles based on your credit card. So that if you go to the restaurant, we can merge that automatically with that profile, because we recognize that the credit card is the same as the profile in the PMS. So the guest lifetime value, we've really reached a pivotal point at the end of last year where we now have this full profile. And then going forward, we need to now actually do something with it. And I think that's what we love to dig into on the guest side.
That is definitely like, first you need to collect data, then you need to clean the data like you do with mesh and merge, and then you need to show the data and action the data. And these two things, like actioning the data and showing the data, are a major focus for us this year as well. So things like showing actually the guest lifetime value in the PMS to the right stuff, and also in the POS, so that you know who your valuable guests are. I was talking to someone running front of house at a hotel, and they said they know which rooms are a little bit better and which rooms are a little bit worse, and the way they allocate them today is just based on the amount on the reservation itself, but not the full lifetime value of a guest. So now with this, you'll be able to immediately see in the be a POS or a PMS at the front of house, you would immediately see this is a high value guest that's returning for a third time, or that maybe just a second time, but has spent tremendous amount of money last time, and is really something that you should kind of nurture in your hotel. And on top of that, it's just not showing this data. Again, AI is something that can suggest, based on the information we have, what are the tasks that you could automatically, so for example, if you're a lactose intolerant, which I know is a thing you love to use in your examples on LinkedIn, there is something AI can suggest that, even though you normally give a milk chocolate to your guests in the house, AI can suggest to add a task automatically that's to housekeeping, to say, replace that with something that it doesn't have. Maybe that's something that we already know Matt loves. What would it be, Matt? What would you, instead of chocolate, what would you see? Dark chocolate. Just dark. Simple as that. Matt is not a complex man to please. Or that is something that guy can do, but also, beyond that, we are thinking about these sort of personalized automations you could set up, and identifying guest segments. Like today's, segments in hospitality are usually tied to rates and rate codes, and where the kind of guests come from, is it corporate or not, but they don't really speak about the guests themselves and the nature of the guest. And that's something you could build automations around. So if it's a family, always give them something for kids to the room, for example, is an automation you could have within Mews, and this would contribute to something that we call, kind of small or like personal loyalty. It's loyalty that, it's not a program. It's just something that, you just kind of, through the great guest experience, you make people fall in love with your brand and come back. But it would also apply in the future to kind of program loyalty, or big loyalty, as we like to call it internally, where you would be able to say that based on your loyalty program membership and your kind of tier, you would get following rewards automatically, and it isn't something that you would need to do manually, as well as helping you actually get those loyalty members up and running through our kiosk solution and front of house recommendations as well.
So these metrics that we're measuring, so like guest experience, or the guest lifetime value, or revenue per square meter, or revenue per employee. One thing is showing it for you as a hotel, but another thing is showing you whether it's a good number or a bad number. And today, the only metric that you can reach out to would be the STR organization, which will tell you that your revenue per available room is correct. But how can we help tell hotels whether the numbers are good?
That's a great leading question.
I know.
So one way we sort of look at these things is, again, as you well said, like everyone tracks the number of steps they make in a day. But why? Only because everyone knows that 10,000 is good. Because, Apple said, 10,000 is good, so everyone believes them. And that is what makes it interesting. So what you're really tracking isn't you don't really care about the number of steps you do. What you care about, is it above, like have I accomplished basically that goal? And so that kind of adds meaning to the data. And that is something very similar we want to do, is where we obviously have thousands and thousands of hotels nowadays on Mews. In every geo and every city, we have at least a few hotels that are very similar to you. And you probably already do know them from your competitive asset analysis in whatever kind of rate shopping tool you use. But that is just for prices. You actually don't see behind it. You don't get any guidance beyond that. And the way we are thinking about this metric is that we would actually give you those insights across our customer base. So you would see why is guest lifetime value higher of a hotel opposite on the street, and what are some of the practical ways we see them doing, without obviously disclosing their information. In a completely anonymous way, you could be able to see how do you differ versus your kind of cohort overall on a sort of abstract level, and then help you materialize those insights and give you those insights as well. Obviously those are lagging indicators. Those are very, very good for like quarterly reviews, maybe monthly reviews to kind of look at. But then you also need leading indicators to actually make a change. And even those leading indicators we are embedding into our platform. So you would, for example, be able to see like what's the percentage of online check-ins versus non-online check-ins, and how fast, how does it convert, and how fast is it, and what can you do? How can you, did you configure that one field too much, basically that kind of repels the user, or do you have an ugly image on the booking engine that you can correct, or can you activate, SMS communication so that, you kind of get that invite to the hands of your mortgage? Those are things that we'll be embedding into our platform to drive those results across all of revenue, operational excellence, and guest experience.
And one that will obviously help the hotel and the operators of the hotel, but on the other side also, I think owners of hotels have lacked insights into, do I put a big brand on the roof, or am I actually safe to remove the brand because modern systems allow me to run much more efficient and I don't have to pay these huge franchising fees to these brands? Do I put a hostel in, or do I put a luxury hotel in? Because you could do both with the same real estate, and hopefully we'll provide some insights to show that actually you could be more profitable running a hostel than you would running a extreme luxury hotel. And today, those assumptions are very hard to make, and there are a lot of back of a napkin calculation that happens based on what they think is going to happen in that particular location. And hopefully these BI tools that we're building will help give real insights, rather than just the traditional BI tool where you have to just figure it all out yourself. We're trying to give some guidance through these tools to the hotels.
Yeah, what we are starting with, what we've seen, even with the metrics today we use as an industry, we've seen a huge inconsistency, inconsistency in data across systems. Everyone measures, even RevPAR is like, you could talk about as a standardized metric. Actually, everyone measures it differently. And I want that service to be part of that, and that service not to be part of that. And we've seen that causing a lot of trouble. So solving that problem as well is something that we devote a lot of time to, so that you're able to standardize the metrics and standardize the reporting across your base, so you can define metrics and everyone knows by the definition what that metric means, giving you the ability to create custom dashboards, and that is sort of like one of the main things we'll be launching with that. It's actually in beta right now, so everyone is welcomed to sign up to that beta as well, but giving you the ability to create any dashboards that suit your business or your segment. As I said, every hotel is at the end of the day very different. So giving you the ability to do that and access data, not just kind of the kind of locked in data in the PMS, but all the products around and the whole ecosystem of use. We will give you the ability to digest all the data into one place and sort of build a standardized set of reporting on to that. Obviously, while continuously improving solutions like Atomize and kind of giving you options to kind of use those dashboards just as interesting things to look at, not things you need to act on because you have systems in place that act on them for you. Especially with the acquisition of Atomize, we're looking at ways how we can be stronger together, right? We have data that Atomize didn't have access to, and kind of really no other solution in the market has today. So for example, any revenue management system that you might be using today, will not react to your booking engine conversion rates, just because those two systems don't talk to each other. But again, with the product suite that Mews has, that is something we can incorporate into the models, and we have put a significant resources behind improving the models for you, as well as giving you the ability to tune those models so that it's not like binaries, like, oh, it's AI or me, but nothing in between. But we can also make it, it's AI for these days, or it's, you will sort of hint it, basically, be more aggressive on these days and less aggressive on those days, and kind of combine your context with the sort of benchmark data and the models to make the best outcome together.
Nice. So we started talking at the beginning really around giving data and giving democratizing data for hotels, but also then showing you're actually not doing well, or you're doing really well, but you could do better. That's the beginning piece. And then we went down and said, okay, we're actually now hopefully waking hotels up saying you could do more revenue based on the solutions you have, but you're not leveraging the solutions in the right way. And this is a struggle that we often have when we talk to hotels, that they think that they're doing fine in upselling. And we're like, no, you're actually not. Like, we looked at the data and we compared it, and it's quite a manual lift for our customer success people to go into a hotel and saying, you're actually underperforming versus the market. And when a hotelier hears this, that wakes them up, because that sparks like this energy to kind of win. And I'm hoping that this is what's going to drive, because we've got all these amazing features, and you already touched on Atomize specifically, but we've got more than that. But let's start with Atomize. What excited you about that acquisition specifically, and what's the plan for Atomize going forward for this year?
So first of all, we always love the team. The team is amazing, and it really kind of felt Mews. That is a saying we have in Mews, that someone feels Mews or is a Mewser, that we kind of tend to use in interviews, etc. And really kind of when we met with Atomize, we really felt a deep partnership over the past couple of years already. And that is, obviously something that's hugely important, even outside of the products themselves. But just the mindset of full automation is just something that kind of really appealed to us. The way they think about, in the same way that the best report is no report and best process is no process. Obviously, it will take time to get there. So we are, for example, combining the Mews BI reports actually with Atomize to craft a more sort of comprehensive offering together. So those are, for example, some of the things that we are working on. To
that they don't have to leave Mews to access Atomize, that it would be all embedded inside Mews.
So that is a different one. This is just that we would extend sort of Atomize reporting capabilities by capabilities within our Mews BI product. But as you rightly said, what we are also working towards, that will take a little bit of time. That will probably be end of the year, maybe even early next year. But we are working towards this vision of an embedded RMS. As you all know, we have embedded payments, and our vision is like, what would an RMS or almost anything else would look like in an embedded version, where you can't really differentiate between this one software or the other. We think about the user persona that uses this, and we think about the revenue managers and how do they use this, and they have to jump in between those systems. And we want to create one centralized place where they could actually set their rates, as well as kind of tune the revenue management system together towards this vision of a PRMS, if you will, as well, one and together.
And it's addressing a real challenge, and having worked in hotels and having to do group quotes and having to then run to your revenue manager to get the pricing. And he's like, okay, how much food and beverage revenue is there? And then you have to put that into a different system. And for the meeting rooms, you have to go into an Excel sheet to get the prices. And a lot of these things are quite manual. And then you have to go into a quoting tool where you pull together these quotes. And we're really thinking that all of this should live inside one platform where all of the users live. They don't all the different users that sit in hotels shouldn't log into their own separate systems. That should all happen in one place, so that there's a single source of truth, right?
Yeah, that is actually also something that we are working on related to security, which has been a huge topic for our industry lately as well, in which we're working on a solution that would enable you to have just one Mews account to all the products that we offer, as well have a very sort of granular permissions over that. So you could say, like, this person can go to this product and this and the following product, and can only really view and export these two items over here, but nothing else, to really kind of drive the the least amount of privileges you actually need for your job to help protect the businesses of our customers as well. So it has multiple angles to it. It's user friendly and secure as well, which is a win-win type of situation.
So with Atomize, are we looking to go beyond rooms? Because we're starting to measure and give metrics to hotels to say, okay, revenue per available space, etc. So how are we going to leverage Atomize to go beyond just the traditional revenue management system?
Great question. So beyond combining the models and combining the UI and these sort of things that we talked about, Atomize actually was already thinking about it. The vision of Atomize was to actually optimize for the total profit of the business. And there is already a small feature within Atomize where you can put your ancillary revenues in and sort of take them into an account. But obviously together we can make it a dynamic feature. Today it's a static feature that you sort of set it based on the averages. You could actually make it dynamic, based on seasonality and the guests and segments and all these things. And also not manual, it will be automatic basically. So again, that's something that we can connect together. But obviously a huge part of Mews is that kind of ancillary revenue of new spaces and upselling and just thinking about your guests and optimizing for that guest lifetime value in totality, not just, can I fill my rooms? And that has a variety of sort of components, right? So it's also attracting the right guests. So being able to, focus on the right segments and be able to actually say a good example that is actually tied to another great thing that we are bringing to our product, which is allowances, is we just had a Valentine's Day, right? And if you tried to book a dinner on Valentine's Day, most of the restaurants, even that you regularly go to and have a coffee, would tell you you are only allowed if you pre-book the Valentine's Day's menu fully. So that's a great example of how those restaurants knew that the most profitable segment would be couples on Valentine's Day. And they have sort of restricted the offer and catered the offer in a way that optimizes for that group, because they were confident that I can fill all my restaurant with couples on Valentine's Day. So I should actually hyper optimize for that segment and create a tailored offer and not allow anyone else. Whereas on other days, you can go there and just have a coffee because they know that basically they can't fill it with just, cup of spending crazy amount of money. So that is a great, I think there was a great example of the same thing that hotels should be doing, in different seasons. For different 3 seasons, you have different ICPs and we would sort of think about how can we first give you those insights that you have there. Sometimes hotels might even not know them, like who's the most profitable guest in a given season, but then also help you set your distribution, your restrictions, your pricing, all these things in a way that actually cater towards that. And then when those people are in the room, to make sure that the services they use are properly priced, so that late check-in, is priced differently based on the availability and the season. That it is same as early check-in, same as additional products. The idea of food and beverage being dynamic is sometimes controversial, but there are restaurants doing that already, just not knowing about that, calling it happy hours. Happy hour is actually a dynamic pricing of food and beverage as well. And it can go to other amenities, be it the spa and wellness or bike rental. Maybe everyone wants to rent a bike on a weekend, but not very people want to do that on a business Wednesday.
And a lot of these things that you mentioned now, we actually developed last year. So the ability to book a bike or a co-working desk, or adding upsells into the online check-in for both products and for physical rooms. We added it to the kiosk now. So the products exist. And the ability to dynamically price has existed for however long we've created these options, but no one knows how to do it because humans cannot do all of the pricing for all of these things simultaneously. And this is where we get excited, because this is where there's a real revenue opportunity, because you can only push the price of the bedroom so far before people will leave for another hotel. But these things, and I talk about parking, for example, often. If you're running a high occupancy on a Friday, it is very likely your parking will also be busy. So the pricing of your parking should dynamically link to the rooms and get more expensive, because it's likely that people will come with a car and want to park it. And that's where incredible revenue gains could come from for hotels going forward.
Yeah, definitely. But even though, again, those are things that we talk about, but there is still, I think half of the industry doesn't even change their prices at all. So there's a significant amount of hotels that just say that their room is always 100. So the potential in the industry is just incredible overall.
So let's leave the revenue item because there's a lot we could talk about. I have so much more on the roadmap that I want to just pick your brain on. So one of the hardest things is deploying a property management system because hotels never shut. Like we come in and there's an actual operating hotel and we have to come in and deploy Mews, and it is painful. However you turn it, like it is operationally a nightmare to switch out systems whilst you're checking in and out customers. And we've been really good at this. Like historically with legacy systems, it's been an absolute nightmare. And I've been through some of those nightmare scenarios in my previous life. And it's got better, but it's not perfect still. But I think you put quite some resources behind deployments this year, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. The mission that we have set for ourselves there is how can we make it so that changing the PMS is often referred to as a sort of brain surgery or open heart surgery, and I'm just going to one of our customer events in a few weeks, and the main topic is basically like fear of change and change management, and and changing systems is really such a scary moment for us in an industry, whereas in other industries, in Mews we change softwares maybe too often, but it's almost like a daily. It's not a thing, whereas in hospitality it still is like a major topic, and one of the big major reasons is because the software isn't actually suited. There is the business of hotels is actually 24/7, right? The guests are always in the building. There is no time to switch off. So therefore, it makes the bar for onboarding and adopting new software is super, super high. But we've set ourselves on a mission. How can we make it so easy that it's like a new iPhone that you kind of unpack, you say migrate from the other phone, and everything is done. So that is kind of our vision for where we want, onboarding of a new PMS to be, both be it a new customer or a new property they opened up, in a way that we can not only give the power to the user to configure everything and maybe let AI kind of help with that, while also looking at external data sources, right? So again, we have those benchmarking data. We can maybe pre-populate a lot of the things already with similar hotels and how is it usually configured, and sort of give automatic recommendations on top, as well as taking data from booking.com and other sort of sources around, to make sure that we kind of really do as much as we can automatically out there for you, and that is one of the biggest goals for my team.
And it's also
year.
the ecosystem. So one thing is changing the PMS, but once you've got Mews as PMS, onboarding with, for example, an Atomize, it should literally be switching on the token, and then the data starts flowing. And I was last week in Gothenburg, and I asked the Atomize team, how is it to deploy Atomize with different PMS solutions? And they're like varying degrees of complexity, because it depends on how the data is provided to us, whether we have to clean it manually, etc. And I said, well, how is it with Mews? And they're like, it's pretty good, but we still have manual work to do to make sure that the data corresponds correctly. But we need to make that completely seamless, right?
Especially Atomize will get to a state this year where it's basically there. It's whether you just want to use it or not. You don't need to onboard onto Atomize. Like it's there. You can kind of start using it and see what it does in action in a matter of seconds, right? With other things like POS, obviously those things we do need to know like what your menu is, but maybe we can take a photo of the menu and automatically kind of put it in to the software to make that process just way easier. Or there is so much information out there about your restaurant or hotel on Google already, right? How can we take that information and pre-populate your images and everything kind of pre-configure in a matter of instance, so you don't need to do that manual work. Like, everyone I must be like so annoyed when you go to a new e-commerce website just to check out and like, your name and address and all of that again. And I don't want our customers to feel that way when they embrace a new product or a property.
So we did an acquisition early last year, but we kept it quiet because it was a different type of acquisition than what we've done with the Mews POS and now with Atomize, where we bought the company and we started selling it immediately. Whereas with Quotelo that we announced at the end of last year, we done the acquisition already months before, and we started a lot of the groundwork. Can you maybe share a little bit of what what we're thinking, or is this like still a secret that I need to keep secret?
I think at this point that it's something that I would just maybe use as as a space for everyone to kind of encourage everyone to come unfold our annual conference, where we'll be obviously sharing much more in more detail in a sort of fully fledged presentation. But indeed, as you know, Quotelo was a company in the event management, and so we are definitely looking at how can we redefine event management for our customers, as well as make it part of our wider ecosystem, as we like to call it. But I will keep it there.
Right. You briefly touched on security, and our industry has been faced with more and more aggressive attacks of phishing attempts, and they are morphing from your traditional email from a Nigerian prince to suddenly being really advanced. And it's been consistent, like we've experienced this since the summer, and consistently in waves it comes, but we are now learning from other partners in the industry that some of them have been already for years feeling this pressure, and it's widespread. And we're seeing now others also making sure that they enforce two-factor authentication. So there's really this wave of security being the topic of the day. And I remember last year Unfold, my big takeaway of Unfold last year was cybersecurity will be the number one thing on the agenda. And it wasn't the most exciting topic, but it's so important, and more than ever today, it remains relevant. What is the plan for us to better secure the data that we sit on as a platform?
Yeah, that's great. There is plenty of things that we are doing. You've seen us if you've been watching our release note page. You've seen tens of updates that help you tackle with this kind of industry-wide problem, especially as the churn is so high for front of house, usually in hospitality, etc. So you need to kind of keep training new employees. That makes it quite difficult. The composition of front of house is usually that you have multiple people using different computers. It's not always easy as like I have my own device and no one else will ever use it. So therefore, we've actually just shipped a feature called Trust Browser or Trust Device, where you can actually only approve the devices that you have in your hotel. So I'm going to use that as a moment for everyone again to kind of just look at that and sort of turn that feature on, as well as the usual that, as what Matt was sharing, have a bookmark or set up your computers in a way that they already open. Your browser always opens with the Mews login page, and you don't even have to find it, because the main vector of attack is actually through Google search when people type in Mews login and it gets into a malicious site or any other software. The sort of continued is, as I've already highlighted, is kind of the kind of permissions and user management. Like there is one way preventing the attacker to go into the door, letting them in the door, and there was a huge focus making sure that they can't get in. But even whatever you do, you will always, like, these things will always happen. So how can we also make it sure that when they do happen, we minimize that impact? And that's where very granular and role-based permissions come in, so that everyone has the least amount of privileges they really need to accomplish their jobs, right? You probably don't need exporting the whole database to do checking, right? So there are already a lot of ways you can set it up in Mews already, but we have just decided to make it much more robust and really go into the smallest detail possible. So you can really say which actions you can do on which items. So you can say, I can read reservations, but I can't edit reservations, or I can only export customer profiles, but I can't update them. And you can really kind of go into detail and really kind of tick the box only for things and craft these roles for a property and assign people only those roles that are relevant to them. So that is something that is a huge thing that we are embarking on. We're also working on the centralized identity, so that you have just one set of privileges and one account for all your Mews products, as well as we have just made a decision to give SSO for free for 6 months forever, because we have seen SSO as a thing that actually helps quite a lot our customers. So we made a decision to actually eat the costs ourselves, and so you can now try it out for 6 months for free.
And single sign-on is probably much more for the serious hotel companies that have an IT department. If you don't have an IT team, you're probably not going to have single sign-on. But you have different options to log into the system. So that could be your two-factor authentication codes that you get into the app. We actually have this feature, but it's the least favorite. The better version is actually the magic link, right? So if you get a magic link that emails you in your inbox, where you then verify again through your inbox that this is actually you. And this is a thing that I learned in the last year. I always thought that these apps that you have, like the Google apps and stuff, where you get a two-factor code, was pretty safe. But actually, if you've gone to a phishing site and you're logging in and then you're putting in your Google code into that fake website, you're giving away the access to this account as well. So the most important thing is to never click on Google sponsored links, and try and keep your team on the magic links if you can. And I know that in hotels, this is a challenge because not everyone has an email address, and we're looking for better ways to do that. But that is honestly the best way. If you don't have an IT team and a single sign-on, then the next best bets would be the email links. And then the third best bet would be the codes, but they are definitely the least favorite there. Extended stay is something that last year, if you read the media and you looked at what the big brands were doing, suddenly you started seeing every major brand talk about extended stay or apart hotels and going to diversify their categories. What are we doing in that segment?
Great question. And we've also, not only we have seen a sort of segment of extended stay rise quite a lot in the industry, but also aspects of extended stay within traditional hotels, right? For things like membership, etc. That's another way that you can grow your revenue. Having these kind of subscriptions and memberships being to your amenities or hotels on some loyalty programs that you pay for. This sort of subscription-based economy overall is there in the world, and we just haven't been great at adopting that in hospitality, be it for leisure purposes or even corporate purposes, right? You could have a subscription between you and a different company that sort of, gives them a favorable contract, or you pre-contract something that you pay for on a monthly basis. That's a great way to really, secure that business. A lot of times I've seen hotels giving too much flexibility to especially companies, and then they can cancel and basically you're screwed and you're not in a favorable position. Whereas, these subscription-based contracts are actually a great alternative to secure that revenue.
And this is not just there are real customers out there today in our space that are doing this. This is not a co-working company. This is like the Social Hub, for example, have successfully launched this product on Mews and are seeing incredible impact of rethinking what a lobby space could be and turning that into a co-working space and then driving subscriptions for their lobbies. And it's incredibly powerful. And we'll have Social Hub at Mews Unfold. We're on stage also at ITB, where we'll be talking about some of these use cases. But there are hotel companies right now doing this thing. And this leads back to where we started our conversation, which was about total revenue of the real estate, right? So how do I measure how much revenue you're making per square meter? That lobby in hotels is the most valuable space, and it is the most underutilized in terms of driving revenue. And this is one of those great examples where we could help you. I've got a Met Talks coming up with the CEO of Mr. Green, which is this great co-working brand. And I'd love to just pick his brain on how can we learn as an industry to run a co-working space, for example, maybe a small version of that in your hotel lobbies. That'll be an episode that's coming up because I think this is a really hot category.
Definitely. So in that space, those are things like recurring billing and subscription-based billing that is now part of Mews and will continue to expand to companies and credit cards and etc. So you can really go and create these, we call them payment plans in the PMS, where you can say charge this guest monthly for the following items, for example, and also contracting. So a lot of these kind of more subscription-based services, be it student accommodation or membership, they usually require some sort of contract, right? It's not your standard like fill in reservation and order. You want to put some sort of agreement in place. So we are also putting that into our platform as well, so that we have this kind of contracting phase in the sort of reservation lifecycle as well.
So we spent we've definitely gone longer than the normal episode, but it's because I'm like, me and you are probably really passionate about what we're doing. And we only covered like the top line items. There's so much
Tip of
underneath
the iceberg.
Yeah. Like I wanted to end on a high, and I was like, let's talk about accounting. Like, and no one would ever think that's the high, but we have underserved accountants in our system historically. Can you talk a little bit about what the work is that's undergoing to make sure that we make accountants happy around the world?
Yeah. So we've actually just launched a city ledger, a new city ledger. It's people may also know it as accounts receivable. So that is actually something that's out and already live, I think, for a week or something. So that is something you can go ahead and already check that out. We obviously want to take that much further, right? So that the overall flow of managing those payables and receivables is way easier today, and we can kind of help you improve your cash flow today. Like it's currently,
and this goes back to the conversation we had at the start here, where you said, "Do we need a report if we can automate the hell out of this?" And
exactly,
ultimately, the first thing we did is we built the reports. We have the functionality to say, okay, if someone's not paid their invoice, we will send a reminder. You can now press a button. That should be automated. We should automatically send a reminder. The invoice now comes with a payment link so that they don't have to go to do a bank transfer. They can literally just press the link inside the invoice to take the payment, because we're also the payment provider to the hotel. So we're taking this baseline report, and then we're really thinking about, we'd like to remove this report in a few years' time if we can just automate the hell out of it. But right now, what we need is that report.
Exactly. So those are some of the things that we'll be putting in place as well in the following. We are actually looking into even things that could enable that, because right now you have to do some, for example, in some cases, when they do choose to pay through a bank transfer, you actually have to do the reconciliation manually, right? You have to go into Mews and actually say this was paid and add the external thing. We are looking at ways how can we completely automate it so that reconciliation is not something you need to do. It's just something the software tells you, like, it's done and everything is fine. Maybe like this thing is actually not fine. Have a look. But this process as such should be something that we completely remove from our industry and shouldn't be actually worried about. And this will extend to not just collecting money, obviously post-stay, but also in-stay and pre-stay. So that is something with the full ledger solution that we are looking to launch kind of mid-year with the guest ledger and the deposit ledger as well. But again, then building on top of them to make sure that we actually don't need these reports in our industry at all. But it's a baseline that we need to establish, because getting the data right is a huge challenge. And there is, again, like million use cases in million countries. Yeah. So getting this right everywhere, it does take a little bit of an effort. But when we will have that base, we can then finally get to the delighting stage, as we like to call it, and help you sort of automate and streamline a lot of these processes, get that money faster in your building so you don't have to wait for it and you don't have to worry about that. And you sort of feel on top of your cash flow instead of managing cash flow.
Like, there's no better way to end with happy accountants. Like it's not the most exciting feature, but it's been a real challenge that we wanted to solve because accounting in hotels is really complex. The way you book something months in advance and then you consume it over multiple days and you get group bookings, and like it's a really hard challenge. And we thought, and we worked really hard on solving this at the baseline. Thank you for talking me through some of these big boulders that we're pushing up the hill. There is so much more, and we will make sure that all of this information, and we do webinars in different languages as well. But I wanted to just really have you here to explain some of the thinking that we have going on into kind of the bigger thoughts. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. And I actually, just to add on, I do find that exciting, even that. So, that is the power of combining payments as well. Part of our platform, a lot of hotels still think about payments as a commodity. I just need to accept payments. But there is so much revenue loss and so much manual labor still that we need to remove from our industries that, as I said to my original answer, I get passionate about everything. So even this is my favorite area. And thanks for having me, Matt. I'm looking forward to solving this.
Thanks.